Hey fellow babies, welcome back to Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. I'm Michael Pachter, your host. I am hopeful that you are watching this real time because you are either a SIFTD subscriber or you have taken the time to link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch Prime account. If you do that, then Amazon will pay, and you pay nothing. It's all included as part of your Amazon Prime membership. So please try to remember to do that. If you're a YouTube subscriber, we appreciate the subscription. If you are none of these things, then you're watching this a week late, and that's because I insist, because I don't get paid. I want to make sure you guys get the product. Shane needs to pay for the product, so it takes him a while to edit this stuff and gas to get out here and film this thing. So appreciate it if you can support us. If not, we understand. From Patreon, from Jerry Gonzalez. How should Xbox have handled Redfall differently? After all the announcements this week, is it moving in the right direction, meaning Xbox, I guess? How much did the showcase change the narrative, if at all? After watching it, I feel justified owning the new Xbox, but how many more chances does Microsoft have to convince the average customer? Most of the big games we've been waiting for are coming in 2024. Is it too late? I think if you're waiting for game announcements for 2023 until June, you're going to be disappointed all the time. I mean, I don't think most guys will hold back on a big new release, something no one's heard of. I mean, it happens occasionally, but most studios announce games a year in advance. You know, Sony kind of started doing it maybe in February, maybe right before GDC. And I really rarely remember games being announced for the very first time at E3. That's because they'd have to be really super secret and pretty polished by June to come out by November. And nobody can keep secrets anymore, not with Jason Schreier out there doing investigative reporting. I don't think I expected anything big and new out of Microsoft other than small indie-type games. I do think that when Microsoft bought Bethesda, they didn't buy Bethesda for Redfall per se. They bought Bethesda for a vast quantity of really high-quality content. As you know, they've got all the Fallouts and Elder Scrolls games. And the Dishonored, like, those are good games, Prey, but they're not, they're not Fallout. They're not Elder Scrolls. I mean, they're not 15 million, 20 million unit sellers. And so I think that a new IP coming out of Arcane was not the linchpin of that transaction. I think Microsoft thought it was nice to have. My belief is that Arcane bit off more than it could chew with the Redfall development, and they probably just didn't like what they were producing. And, I think that had Arcane been owned by Ubisoft, you would have seen the game canceled, because Ubisoft's really good at giving up on stuff like Splinter Cell. I think they've started the latest one 3 times and canceled it 3 times. Microsoft's different, and in fairness, I don't think Microsoft are the taskmasters that maybe, Schreier made them out to be, but I think they thought the game was good enough to put out, and they pushed it forward, and it's not looking that great, and, that is what it is. So I think the question you asked is, after all the announcements, is Microsoft moving in the right direction? We saw them acquire, 6 studios a year or so, not a year or so, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And, one was, I always forget the name of the Hellblade studio.
Ninja Theory.
Yeah, one was Ninja Theory. I mean, big shocker, Hellblade 2 is coming out, and that's a great game. One was In Exile. And Obsidian already put out, Outer Worlds. I mean, those studios are good, and they're going to make games, and you're not going to be surprised by their games. So Obsidian's actually super productive, getting another game out. So I don't think that anything we saw was a surprise, except maybe the quality of the stuff that we saw. Well, I personally am not that impressed by games like Fable. Like, I don't care. I'll never play it. I hated the first one. I'll never play another Fable game. I heard people really like what they saw. So, you're seeing Hellblade, of course, we expected to look really good. The In Exile game looked okay. Avowed looked very good. So the answer is making up, for the poor quality of Redfall with high quantity of pretty good games, of pretty high quality games. Yes. Microsoft's moving in the right direction. The point is, with Microsoft, I think they're kind of over the Xbox. They'll keep making it, obviously, but I think they're moving on to the next chapter, which is Game Pass. And the next chapter for them is work the tech to make Game Pass work on any device, so you can be a Game Pass subscriber, play on your phone, play on your Switch, play on your PC, play on your PlayStation. They don't care. Play on your TV, directly connected to the internet. And I expect that when they do that, they will sell far fewer Xboxes, and they'll have far more satisfied customers because you're getting a lot of content for $15 a month. So that's the mission at Microsoft, and you can only get there with quantity. So, we don't talk about the quality of Netflix shows very often, but we all know about the quantity. There's always something new to watch on Netflix. And I think Netflix made a comment about 5 years ago that their goal was one new TV show release every week. And they're there, And Microsoft's goal is probably one new good game a month. And I think they're probably pretty close to getting there. They're probably at 9 now, and they'll be at 12 in another 2 years. So, yes, I think that they could have handled Redfall differently. They could have canceled it. They could have handled Redfall differently. They could have put it off a year or two and added some development talent and made the game good. They could have canceled the game. I think probably the smarter thing to do would have been add some people, do like what Call of Duty did when Infinity Ward got in trouble and brought in the Sledgehammer guys to kind of make it a little better. There's plenty of ways to, Ubisoft constantly does this, plenty of ways to make the game better. I'd say giving it another year or two would have been really smart, and putting in some other talent. But, it's just not as good as it's been. As far as, how many more chances does Microsoft have to convince the average customer? Game Pass is the end all. Game Pass is something that is a better deal for consumers. For the price of 3 games a year, you get 200. And, it's sort of like Spotify is to music. Spotify came along and convinced me to pay $16.99 for a family membership. I went from buying 0 CDs a year and 0 iTunes downloads a year to paying whatever 17 times 12 is, $184 or $204 a year. I became a $200 music customer from 0 because Spotify gave me everything. And that's what Microsoft's aiming at. And am I happy that I'm paying $200 instead of 0? I listen to Spotify a lot. I used to not. I have a lifetime Sirius XM subscription, so I used to listen to Sirius XM, wherever I was in my car, on my boat. I listen to Spotify now in my car, on my boat, and so do my kids, and so does my wife. And for $200, we're consuming the product. It's like Microsoft's goal is for $180, consume our product too, and they will. So I actually think Redfall doesn't matter. I mean, in the scheme of things, I would love that it is a good game. I'm sorry that it probably won't be. But, I think it was an ambitious project for Arcane in the first place, and just the wrong team on the wrong IP. And I think, Microsoft's going to just lick its wounds and deal with it. As far as games coming in 2024, like I said, subscribe to Game Pass. There's plenty of content on there right now. If this Activision deal happens, can you imagine being a World of Warcraft subscriber and at no additional cost you get 200 more games? Wow. So I love the Game Pass concept, and what Microsoft's missing there is Netflix-like quantity, and they don't need HBO-like quality. So Redfall will be fine if it costs you nothing to play. And if you're a World of Warcraft subscriber, Redfall will cost you nothing to play. Well, Game Pass only started, 4 or 5 years ago, and they only got serious with content whenever they made those 6 acquisitions, 2019, 2018. So, Bethesda was the first big acquisition. The other ones, Ninja Theory was a good quality studio, but not a giant acquisition. I mean, it wasn't even as big a deal as Sony buying Insomniac. Bethesda was, Obsidian wasn't as big as Insomniac. Buying Bethesda for $6 billion or whatever, that was a big deal. And that added a lot of content. Buying Activision is a huge deal, and adds a lot of content. They've shown how serious they are about Game Pass. So the long game started in 2018, kind of built up in 2019 to 20 with Bethesda. Bethesda only did 21. And now with Activision in 2022/23, they're going all in. So the long game just started, They're saying in the next 10 years, Game Pass is going to grow from 25 million to 100 million subscribers, and I think 200 million. So if they get 200 million subscribers, imagine how much money they will have to spend on great content. And that's where Netflix is now. That's where HBO is now. And the content on Netflix is getting better. The content on HBO is getting better. So consumer wins. You know, what you don't want is 10 competing services where you have to subscribe to all of them in order to get what you want to play. And that's the problem with Nintendo and Sony first party. It'll never be on a Game Pass. And so you're going to still need a PlayStation or a Switch to play Sony and Nintendo content. But short of that, you don't need an Xbox anymore. So, play Microsoft content, buy a PlayStation and buy a Switch, play the first party content there, and subscribe to Game Pass, and you're going to have it all. Thanks for joining us on Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. If you're a Patreon patron, thank you so much. If you have managed to link your Amazon Prime and Twitch Prime accounts together, we're getting paid, so thank you very much. And if you're a YouTube subscriber, we appreciate it. I should say Shane appreciates it. If you can do none of those things, I insist that you get it free because I am not getting paid. Please make sure to follow me on Twitter at Michael Pachter, and I'm happy to give you a shout out if you guilt me into it. I'll see you guys next time.